Welcome back to Only Talk Sports. So we talk sports every single day, or at least we try to. I'm your host, Jeffrey, and subscribe to the channel if you like sports content. Hit that notification bell so you never miss another video. Now, the rematch of a big Big Ten rivalry is on Saturday night on Fox Primetime Hoops, with the Indiana Hoosiers traveling on the road to Mackey Arena and the Purdue Boilermakers. Who do I think is going to win this rivalry game? Let's break it down. Now, Indiana won the first matchup between the Purdue Boilermakers when the Boilermakers were the #1 team in the country, and Indiana got the big win and stormed the court, and I'm sure Purdue is going to definitely want to get revenge on the Hoosiers for that big win. Now, Indiana is having a great season, and they're 19-9 and 10-7 in the Big Ten this season, and Mike Woodson, in his second year as the head coach of the Hoosiers, has done a fantastic job building the Indiana program and making them a better team than they were before he got there as the head coach. And Trace Jackson-Davis has been a beast for Indiana this season, and he's had a great year overall leading the Hoosiers. And Indiana has solid wins this year over North Carolina and Xavier in the non-conference, and they also beat Purdue in Big Ten play. So overall, they have a great resume. It's worthy of a top 5 seed in the NCAA tournament right now, but they're probably going to be looking for more wins to finish out the season to get a really good seed in the NCAA tournament. And aforementioned Trace Jackson-Davis is averaging 20.5 points per game, 11.1 boards, 3.6 assists, and 2.9 blocks per game. He's putting up numbers unlike anything else seen in college basketball since Tim Duncan, and he's the only competition for Zach Edey for National Player of the Year, even though Zach Edey more than likely will win the award, and deservedly so. But Trace Jackson-Davis is still playing so well for the Hoosiers this season. He's a big reason they're having a great season overall. And he's improved in all facets of the game with his passing and his rebounding and his blocking and his touch around the rim. He still doesn't have the shooting, but everything else is there. And he should be drafted in the NBA draft this season, and he's had a great season overall. And Jalen Hood-Schifino, his freshman teammates, averaging 12.8 points per game, 4 rebounds, and 4 assists. He's having a great season, and he's probably going to be a first-round draft pick as well. He's a 6'5 guard that does it all for Indiana, and with Xavier Johnson still out with a broken foot, even though he should be returning soon, he's been a big reason why Indiana has not had too many struggles in the backcourt this season, because if Jalen Hood-Schifino hadn't started playing much better basketball with Xavier Johnson out, then Indiana could have had a hard time this season. Miller Kopp's averaging 8 points per game and 2.4 rebounds per game, and those numbers don't jump off the page, but he's shooting 46.8% from the three-point line this season, and even though a lot of Indiana fans have given Miller Kopp a lot of flack over his career because he doesn't shoot enough, at least when he does shoot it, he shoots it really well, and he's definitely helped out Indiana's three-point shooting percentage as a team. And Race Thompson's averaging 7.8 points per game and 5 rebounds per game. He was hurt for a lot of the season with a knee injury, but he's back now, and he's regaining his strength in that knee, and he's been playing much better for Indiana alongside Trace Jackson-Davis in the front court. And Trey Galloway's averaging 7.1 points per game and 2.9 rebounds per game. He's a really solid guard who's also shooting really well from three-point land this season, shooting around 50% from three. And Indiana also has other solid players in Tamar Bates, Malik Renew, and Jordan Geronimo to round out their rotation. And Indiana this season's averaging 75.4 points per game on offense, and on defense they're only allowing 67.4 points per game. Indiana's a really solid offensive team. They're not one of the best in college basketball, but they are one of the better offensive teams in the Big Ten. But their defense, while good, has not been as solid as it was last year. Indiana had the best defense in the Big Ten last season, and this season it has taken a step back. But overall, Indiana is a better team than they were a year ago, and this is the best season that Indiana's had since the 2016 Tom Crean year. And Mike Woodson's leading the Hoosiers and Trace Jackson-Davis to a really good season overall, but it would be all the sweeter if they can get a sweep of the Boilers at Mackey Arena. But Purdue's not going to want to let that happen, and this season they're 24-4 and they're 13-4 in the Big Ten, and Matt Painter's one of the best head coaches in college basketball. A lot of people will not put him in the top tier of college basketball head coaches, but he is a great coach. He does more with less, and he turns solid players into really great players, and overall he's had a fantastic tenure over his almost 2-decade-long career as the Boilermakers head coach. And this season's been one of Matt Painter's best as the Boilermakers head coach. They're having a great year, and they're atop the Big Ten standings, and as long as they don't slip up further down the last stretch of the Big Ten regular season, they should win the Big Ten regular season title. And Purdue has a really strong resume this season. They have wins in the non-conference over Duke and Gonzaga, and overall, they just have a great resume, and they also have great wins in the Big Ten this season. They have one of the top resumes in college basketball, and even though they've slipped up on the road at Maryland, Northwestern, and Indiana lately, they still are one of the best teams in college basketball, and that's why they're ranked in the top 5 this season. And Zach Edey's been a huge reason why. He's the national front runner for Player of the Year, and he's averaging 22.1 points per game, 12.7 rebounds per game, and 2.4 blocks per game. He deserves to win National Player of the Year if he does win the award, even though Trace Jackson-Davis is giving him a run for his money, because Zach Edey's a player that when he gets the ball down low, it's game over. He does everything for the Boilermakers, and overall, he's having a fantastic season. And Fletcher Loyer is averaging 11.8 points per game and 2.5 assists per game, and he's had a great freshman season for Purdue. He's had to step up in his freshman breathtaking year for the Boilermakers, because if he hadn't have, then Purdue might have struggled this season. But with Zach Edey getting so much attention down low and teams having to double and sometimes triple team Zach Edey just to be able to stop him, Fletcher Loyer gets a lot of open looks, and he's taking advantage of it this season. And Braden Smith, the other freshman guard for Purdue, is averaging 10 points per game, 4.3 rebounds per game, and 4.3 assists per game. He's having a great season for Purdue as well, and he runs the team at a high level, getting great looks for Zach Edey and Fletcher Loyer and the rest of the players on the team. And he has not played like a freshman guard this season, and that's a big reason why Purdue's having a great year. Mason Gillis is averaging 6.6 points per game and 3.6 rebounds per game. He's a really solid player. He had a 29-point explosion in one of their games earlier this year, but overall he's a solid complementary player for Purdue that has improved this season. And Caleb First is averaging 6.1 points per game and 5.1 rebounds per game. He's another solid forward for Purdue. He comes off the bench. He doesn't start like Mason Gillis does, but he's still solid in his own right. And Purdue also has other solid rotational players in Brandon Newman, Trey Kaufman-Renn, and Ethan Morton. And Purdue's averaging 73.5 points per game, and on defense, they're only giving up 61.6 points per game. Purdue's offense, while you look at their players and you don't see a lot of athletic players on the team, they're finding ways to get it done on offense because of Zach Edey being such a load down low, and they just have so many smart and intelligent players on the offensive end that they're able to get away with not having too much athleticism. That's why they're having a great year on offense. And on defense, they're having a fantastic year because Matt Painter puts his players in a position to succeed on the defensive side of the ball. They listen to his coaching, and they do a great job playing sound fundamental defense and not giving up a lot of easy buckets for the opposing team. And that's why Purdue's having a great season. So who's going to win the rematch in this Big Ten rivalry game? Indiana won the first matchup over the Purdue Boilermakers because they were at home in Assembly Hall, and that was a big reason that they got the win because of the crowd noise, and Indiana was amped up, and Trace Jackson Davis had a fantastic game, and he was going toe-to-toe with Zach Edey. He might not have outperformed him, but he played well enough in his own right to help out the Hoosiers get the win. And overall, Indiana's roster just played really hard. Jalen Hood-Schifino, Miller Kopp, and Trey Galloway were able to feed off the home crowd, and they had great performances in that game to be able to get the win over the Boilermakers. But this time around, it's going to be in Mackey Arena. Purdue's going to be rocking, maybe not enough to have parts fall from the ceiling of Mackey Arena like Assembly Hall did, but Purdue has such a great home crowd as well, just like Assembly Hall, and Purdue plays so well at home. They do a great job protecting their home court, and Matt Painter's going to have his team ready to go for the Hoosiers. Purdue's not going to want to get swept by Indiana. Purdue hasn't been swept by the Hoosiers in many years, and they've done a great job of taking this rivalry very seriously and playing really well against the Hoosiers, especially on their home court. And I don't know if Purdue's going to let the Hoosiers sweep them this season. I'm going to go with Purdue to beat Indiana 71-67 in this Big Ten rivalry rematch. I think Indiana can win this game. They have the talent to get the job done. If Trace Jackson Davis can play another great game like he had at Assembly Hall against Zach Edey, then I think they have a shot to win. I think Mike Woodson's going to do everything he can to game plan against Purdue like they did the first time around. And I think that Indiana's going to play really good defense on Zach Edey like they did the first time. And I think that Indiana's offense is going to play really well in this game because they did have a really good showing last year at Mackey Arena, only losing by 2 points, but they also had Xavier Johnson in that game, and if Xavier Johnson was returning for this game, maybe there's a really good shot that Indiana would be able to win this game because Xavier Johnson plays such great on-ball defense on smaller guards, so he might be able to slow down Braden Smith, and Xavier Johnson's such a great facilitator in the pick and roll with Trace Jackson Davis that maybe they'd be able to give Zach Edey fits on the defensive side of the ball. He wouldn't be able to stop the weak side with Trace Jackson Davis rolling to the rim for the lob pass from Xavier Johnson, but overall, Indiana's more likely not going to have Xavier Johnson, and Indiana will play really hard in this game because under Mike Woodson, the intensity of this rivalry game has returned. Indiana was not playing as hard in this rivalry game under Archie Miller. Even when Bob Knight returned at Assembly Hall in the 2020 game, Indiana still lost that game. But now that Mike Woodson's the head coach, they play a lot harder in this rivalry, and I think they're going to give it everything they got in this game. But Purdue, again, they're not going to want to be swept by the Hoosiers. They're going to play really hard in this game, and I think it's going to be a really intense rivalry that's now becoming one of the best rivalries in college basketball, again, up there with Duke, North Carolina. I think Purdue's going to play really hard on offense to be able to score points over Indiana's defense that has struggled at times, and I think that Purdue's defense will be able to slow down Indiana's offense a good amount of times in this game, especially because Indiana doesn't have Xavier Johnson back just yet. And I think that the Purdue Boilermakers are going to feed off of an impressive crowd. It's going to be really loud in this game. It's going to give the Indiana Hoosiers fits, and I think this is going to be another fantastic edition of this Big Ten rivalry game, but I'm going to go with the Purdue Boilermakers to beat the Indiana Hoosiers in the rematch 71-67 to avoid the sweep of the Indiana Hoosiers. Subscribe to the channel if you like sports content. Like this video down below. Comment down below whether you think Purdue or Indiana is going to win this rivalry game and why, and I will see you next time.